morning, everyone. Good morning, Commissioners, Chief Moore, Mr. T-Fank, Madam Secretary, Mr. Assistant Inspector General Florence Yu, Ms. Florence Yu, Mr. City Attorney Carlos De La Guerra, members of the public. Today is Tuesday, April 11th, 2023. It's 9:30 a.m. This is a regular meeting of the Los Angeles Board of Police Commissioners. Madam Secretary, please take the roll.
Good morning. Please let the record reflect that Commissioners Briggs, Shields, Sobroff, and Southers are present, and we have a quorum. Mr. President?
Thank you, Madam Secretary. Please give me a moment. My computer is not behaving. We welcome everyone attending this morning. All public comment will be heard during item number 2 on the agenda. We will dedicate a total of 45 minutes to public comment. Members of the public will have 1 minute per agenda item for a maximum of 2 minutes total. At the request of the speaker will be given 1 additional minute for general public comment for a maximum of 3 minutes total. The order of the speakers will be a speaker in this room will go first, then we will take a speaker watching today's meeting on Zoom. We will alternate speakers in the room and Zoom for a total of 45 minutes. Members of the public who participate in public comment are reminded that they can speak to any item on the agenda or a matter within the jurisdiction of the Board of Police Commissioners. Public comment is your opportunity to address the board, so you are free to express your opinion on matters before the board and to generally express when you disagree with other opinions expressed. However, directing your comments to other individuals who have spoken or attacking others who have expressed their opinion shall be deemed off topic, and your public comment period will be concluded. Members of the public, if you choose to participate in the public comment portion of the agenda, you can participate in this meeting in a number of ways outlined on the agenda. For those in the room, you can submit a speaker card to one of the officers who will then give the card to a board secretary indicating you wish to speak. If you are logged on, please raise your virtual hand. If you wish to just listen to the meeting, you can do so and call into the numbers listed on the agenda that are designated for call in and listening. For those of you in attendance, you are reminded that disruptive behavior will be cause for removal. If you disrupt this meeting, you will be provided with only 1 warning to cease disruptive behavior. If you fail to cease such behavior, you will be removed from the meeting. At this time, we're going to go to item number 1 on the agenda, the report of the Chief of Police. Good morning, Chief.
Commissioner President Briggs, good morning. Members, other commissioners, our Assistant Inspector General, Mr. T-Fank, our City Attorney. As I do each week, I'm going to begin with the COVID-19 update. This last period, we had a total of 3 new COVID-19 cases. 1 of those 3 were previously vaccinated. And as to the work status of those that have been impacted by COVID-19, we have 22 of our personnel that are home. That's an increase of 3 additional personnel from my report last week. I'm happy to report that we now have 10 long COVID cases, which is an improvement of 1 from 1 fewer COVID-19 long COVID, and we have no hospitalizations. In regards to significant events, I want to comment on a number of different issues. First, this past Thursday night into Friday morning, we had an arson that occurred at our Southwest station in South Los Angeles. There, just prior to midnight, Thursday night, Friday morning, a woman who's been later identified as Ms. Shavana Eaton placed a shopping cart near the front door of the station, which was actually closed at the time for front desk services. According to video evidence that was gathered, it appears that she set that cart on fire, had a number of combustibles that were inside of it, and that fire resulted in more than $1 million of damage to the front and interior of our station there. I am grateful that neither her nor anyone else inside the building was injured. The fire department responded and was able to extinguish the fire in approximately a half hour. The building did suffer extensive smoke damage, however, and we've had general services as a department respond with their engineers as well as our facilities management personnel working with our ITD, our information technology, to assess the damage. That assessment period is still ongoing. It is hoped that we'll have that work done and that we'll be able to make some modifications to the front of the facility. I don't see the front of the facility opening for some time pending those repairs, but this fire has required us to relocate all of our Southwest personnel to stations in the nearby vicinity. That will hopefully be remedied by early next week, and we can continue to have our detectives and uniformed personnel and others work out of that station while repairs are made to the front of the building. Ms. Eaton was identified based in part on the video evidence of her imagery and located nearby, and she was arrested and booked for felony arson, and the district attorney's office has filed a felony case of arson of an inhabited dwelling. Her bail remains at $250,000, and she remains in custody. Next item I'd like to talk about is that we had, on Sunday, I attended the Los Angeles Mission annual Easter event in downtown Los Angeles, where both in addition to a religious service, we attended the ability to provide meals for hundreds of individuals that have gathered there, as well as referrals with supportive services. Unfortunately, earlier that day, as the region, as the world celebrated three of the highest holy days amongst three major religions, we saw a hate crime occur at the Islamic Center of Southern California. Hours before, approximately 11 o'clock on Saturday night, according to video evidence from the front of the Islamic Center, a lone male vandalized the front columns of that house of worship, placing anti-Semitic hate speech in with a marker, permanent marker on those columns. As I said, the CCTV captured the image, and yesterday a multi-faith and community leaders from across Los Angeles and this region gathered at that center to denounce and condemn the hate crime against that house of worship, particularly in this time of the honoring of Ramadan, the month of Ramadan, as well as the period of Passover and the Easter celebration for the Christian faith. We posted and asked for the public's help. We provided a imagery of the individual we believe responsible for this on a crime bulletin, as well as conducting area canvasses. Major Crimes Division did pick up and take responsibility for that investigation. And earlier this morning, an anonymous caller contacted communications and directed Olympic patrol officers to the 500 block of Chateau Place. There, they identified an individual matching the description of our hate crime suspect, wearing what appeared to be the same clothing with the exception of a T-shirt. This individual has been identified as Carlos Moran, 43 years of age, a male Hispanic. Information gathered from Mr. Moran leads us to believe that he is suffering from some type of mental health issues in relationship to his state of mind in relationship to what was written on the columns. There was questions regarding some of the expressions which professed hatred towards Muslims, but also referenced a King 222. According to information we've gathered from our interview with this individual, he believes that he is a king and his birthday was the February 22nd, which explains helps explain the markings. What's unexplainable is the professed hatred that he expressed in the other markings that were on those columns. We'll continue to work this investigation, and we'll work with our district attorney's office. He is being booked for a felony vandalism, and hate crime enhancement is being sought. Next, I want to move over to, we had no categorical uses of force during this period of time. Moving over to our crime statistics, we continue to see a reduction in our both violent as well as property crime, with a total reduction of 26% in our homicides, a nearly just over 11% reduction in overall violent crime, with reductions in each of the categories of violent crime compared to last year. Overall, compared to 2019, which is, I continue to reference as our base year pre-COVID, we have a 2.2% reduction in violent crime in the city year to date. Our two challenges in this regard is homicide, where we have a 2.9% increase, so that margin of increase is continuing to be reduced. But our aggravated assaults stand at 11.9% increase. So that nature of that is we'll continue to work and strive to see our numbers continue to get back to what it was 2018 and 19, some of our lowest years in more than 30 or 40 years of crime in Los Angeles. Overall, Part 1 crime which includes property crime, is a 4.9% reduction year-to-date. That number last week was a 4.5% reduction, so we continue to see some improvement in that area. In comparison to 2019, overall Part 1 crime, which includes both violent and property crimes in these major categories, is a 1.4% increase. As I stated earlier, there's no categorical uses of force, so we've had no change in the number of officer-involved shootings this year versus last. We stand at 6, and last year at this same period of time, we had 6 officer-involved shootings. Moving over to our personnel strength, there was the only change in that regards was the 41 new recruits that started their academy journey yesterday at our police academy, and with that, we stand at 9,103 of our personnel, 2,635 sworn professional staff. We have 431 reserves and 2,298 volunteers, and that concludes my remarks.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, I want to discuss with you for a moment a topic that I'm still very much concerned with, and that is the release of the photographs. What is the department doing to ensure the safety of officers as well as their families?
Thank you. It is the inadvertent release of photographs of individuals that worked or work in a undercover or confidential manner has created concern amongst our rank and file, as well as myself, and I know this commission, as well as Mayor Bass. And our efforts are to attempt to mitigate that by doing a number of things. One, we've expressed across the organization that should anyone believe that they have been targeted or have been a victim of harassment or criminal threat or otherwise, to step forward and identify themselves. And we will conduct a threat assessment and also pursue criminal charges against anyone that, on the basis of their photograph being released, has created that circumstance. Secondly, is that we've looked at all of our and surveyed all of our personnel that work in an undercover assignment to evaluate investigations in which they're involved in and determine whether there needs to be any adjustment as far as withdrawal of them from those investigations or other techniques used, rather than the reliance upon that undercover operator. To date, the vast majority of our investigations have been unimpacted, meaning that the operators and undercover operators are comfortable in their role and in the tactics that are used as they go about their investigation, that their safety has not been compromised to the point where they need to pull back from that investigation. That is something that we're paying a great deal of attention to and will continue to monitor in the days ahead. Additionally, we are pursuing a criminal prosecution against an individual involved in what we believe is solicitation of violence against our officers. And that investigation is working with the FBI, and we will continue to pursue that and hold individuals responsible who threaten violence against our personnel by the basis of the release of these photographs. Additionally, the city attorney has been working on behalf of the city in this department, is pursuing litigation to pull back the release of the photographs that should not have been released, given the confidential nature. Additionally, there's additional legal steps that we believe are possible, and this is an ongoing conversation. Lastly, this is something that on a personal basis, I have spoken with a number of rank and file and others across the organization that we are looking at every aspect of in Public Records Act requests and our practices of and tenor of attempting to be transparent and provide that transparency through the release of what should be accessible records, for us to look at the further release of any personal identifying information of rank and file, all the way, including our civilian professionals, and ensure that in the future that the release of individual records or information about individuals is that those personnel impacted are notified. That was an absence in this instance, which I regret and should not have occurred. And going forward, we want to ensure that whether we are releasing an individual information on an arrest or an activity of an officer or other information that identifies an officer's actions, that much as we do with an officer-involved shooting where the identity of the officers are announced, that those officers are made aware of that announcement prior to the announcement. And so that they have an opportunity, should they believe that the department should be objecting to that release and not conducting that release, that they can assert that and move forward, as well as recognizing that there are legitimate public interest needs on certain information that's released regarding public policing, and that they can and will support and help evaluate their social media presence, if any, their activities to ensure the safety of themselves and their family should someone take the release of that information and, unfortunately, what we've seen, choose to act in a criminal fashion to harass or threaten or actually act on with physical violence individuals. As I've said in the immediate aftermath of this, the very thing that I feared happened, which was that people, individuals, have taken this as an opportunity to threaten and intimidate, to cause fear in the hearts and in the sense of safety of our personnel, to dissuade our personnel from even conducting serious and needed criminal investigations, and others that have actually efforted to dissuade members of the public who would wish to join this profession as intimidation that this is the type of lifestyle they're going to have to endure if they choose to join this profession. And that's regrettable, given that the reality of a safe community, it's critical that policing play a role there, and that the actions of these dedicated guardians deserves respect and the right of a sense of safety for themselves as well as their family.
Thank you, Chief. Chief, I'd like the department, in conjunction with the city attorney, to look into whether or not, going forward in the future, we can simply prohibit the release of certain identifying information, such as photographs. And because of the danger that it places department personnel in. And I'd like that report within 4 weeks to the executive committee first, and then ultimately to the commission, if possible.
Okay, absolutely. We'll work with the city attorney's office in the preparation of that material.
Thank you. Dr. Southers, do you have any questions for Chief Moore? Okay. Commissioner Shields, any questions for Chief Moore?
Chief, I just had a question about the arsonist Southwest Station. Was there any information about a motivation, or has she had any dealings with the mental health unit in the past?
I'm not aware of any prior mental health involvement. It does appear that she may have been experiencing homelessness, and may or and to the extent of her mental health, though, I'm not clear.
Thank you.
Commissioner Sobroff, any questions?
I don't.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to public comment. Madam Secretary.
Okay, the first speaker is Jonathan Foster.
Good morning, Jonathan Foster. Chief, do you remember this part here last week?
You talk about ardent critics stepping in, and the police are stepping to the breach, right? Armor is the best tech tool you need. It didn't get used. So officers don't have to place their, so officers don't have to place their lives at risk and reducing the threats, and yet the body armor reduces the threats. They're improperly trained and improperly told what to do. That's why I call myself the acting chief, wannabe chief, wish I was chief. I'm not a chief, though. but
Mr. Rogers, thank you for your remarks.
you gotta protect the people.
Do you remember that, Chief? You called me Mr. Rogers. My last name is Foster. And what I wanted to say was, you said thank you for your comments for a matter of information, and then you stopped speaking. Do you remember what you were going to say?
Yes, that those officers that you referenced were wearing body armor.
Really? Where were they struck?
So I'm not going to get beyond,
No, no,
I'm
okay.
happy to talk with you afterwards.
Okay. Well, thanks for that. Let's see. Number one should have been actually, we're here today. If you want Jesus' blessing, shouldn't we have taken the day off? How are we going to get Jesus' blessing after Easter if we're here, buddy? Number four, I'm going to be even more unpopular being positive LAPD, even though you realize what I've criticized. I have other things to say, like we've got 9,000 officers, and I'd like to see 18,000. I'd like to see a double. That would produce more safety. On your pursuits, there needs to be a law change where you can hit the car with a paintball. This has to be at the DMV, and that way you can track it instead of running them around at 104 miles an hour and killing people. That way it can be tracked by the helicopter. That needs to be a law change with the DMV. That way you stop killing people. And what happened with the LA Sheriff's Department pursuit? Did you see that? There was an officer, he got out and it was still in reverse. Didn't make it to park. And so these are some of the things that are very important. You had also said, though, last week, it was April 4th, 23, no iOS for 2 weeks. You know, that's a great achievement. That is the goal. But what happens when the suspect actually pushes the LAPD over the line and they have to shoot, right? So all that would be out the window. And there was also there was a bit of a standoff. Somebody had shot somebody through a wall and they ran away. That situation was different than Jonathan Magnotta. That guy you should have busted that guy's door in with body armor still too. But I'd like to hear where they were hit.
Okay, and over Zoom, we have T.
Hello?
Hi, what items would you like to speak on?
All of them, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Y'all opened up with a homeless woman had a shopping cart in front of your all South LA station. Somehow it caught fire and damaged the building. But instead of offering this woman services or housing or mental services, y'all arrested her. Now, then the more goes into Easter and Ramadan and Passover. And how is this any correlation to humanity? You know, you go into talking about a woman's condition, and then you go on to talk about religion. In the way you treat this woman, y'all are supposed to be public servants, yet you criminalized this woman for being poor. Wasn't Jesus poor? Didn't he help the poor? Y'all profess yourselves to be servants of the public, yet you continue to abuse and murder and criminalize folks, especially black and brown predominantly. And you pride yourself as do-gooders when you're actually the direct opposite. And then you're upset that the community has the Watch the Watchers website, and you spent more time talking about that when it wasn't even on the agenda or in the report, because you feel threatened now that you all are being exposed. That once y'all commit evil, murder our loved ones out here, like 14-year-old Jesse Romero that was on his knees in East LA, a 14-year-old child that y'all were threatened by on his knees with his hands up, that was murdered by y'all. And then you're mad that the public wants to expose, or like Rashario Mack that was having a mental health crisis in the Baldwin Hills Crenshaw Mall. That murder was found out of policy, actually. And that guy was promoted. These people should be exposed. You all are public servants. And if you're murdering and harassing our folks out here day in and day out, they should be exposed. And you're mad about it, and now all of a sudden there's a narrative that you all are under attack. That's a lie. You fabricate so much to fit your own narratives. What about the murders of Keenan Anderson? We want the names of those officers. That so-called less than lethal taser that murdered Keenan Anderson.
Okay, thank you.
The next speaker is Jason Reedy.
What's your name?
Gina Viola.
Thank you.
So this is my third time back in person and the first time I've had the opportunity to speak to you all, because each time the 45-minute runs out before I've had an opportunity to actually address this board. Does that seem fair? Does that seem fair in a city of 4 million people, that folks who take their time to come down here or sit on Zoom and have you on their dining room table, as I have for the last several years, don't have an opportunity to address you? I cannot tell you how many written comments I have prepared to make that I was not called to do so. I am a citizen of this city. I am a citizen of Los Angeles. I am gravely concerned about the way this department operates. These faces change, but nothing about this department does. The chief himself admitted with 6 officer-involved shootings tied with last year. So what has changed? What has changed from last year to this year? These faces, some of these faces have changed. Steve, I don't know how long you're going to sit there, but it's time for you to go. You set the culture of this board, and this board is nothing but a rubber stamp for everything that the LAPD does over and over again. T's right in her comment, Commissioner Briggs. He didn't even bring up the Watch the Watchers website, yet you asked ad nauseum about it. Where is your same concern for family members who are killed by this department? Where is it? Where was your concern for Officer Tipping, who was beaten by LAPD officers to death? I don't hear your concern for that. Don't roll your eyes at me. It's taken me a long time to get up here and be able to speak to you, and now you're just going to roll your eyes at me because I'm pointing out the obvious flaw in the way you are running this sham of a board? COVID numbers. We've been doing this for years. Where are you talking about the fact that how many officers have died from COVID? Now we've got officers on long COVID. What I'd like to see is the numbers. I'd like to know exactly how much money it is costing the city for all of the officers that have COVID, who never took it seriously. Your 3 new COVID cases, 1 has the vaccine, 2 others don't. You see, I'm still wearing my mask, right? Because I still take it seriously. Your officers never did. I was out in the streets with them time and time again, with them spitting in my face with no mask on. COVID was never a concern for them. They were forced to do so, and you lost was it 9 officers and 3 spouses? I think it's correct. And now 3 on long COVID. Yeah, it's hard to be up here. I got to tell you that for sure. So it's just horrible that this is the time and place where we have these meetings. The LA City Council is meeting, the Board of Supervisors is meeting, sometimes LAUSD meets. Change the date, time, and place of these meetings. Make them true community meetings so people can have them out in the public. I got nothing else to say.
Next, we have Betty Lay.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's report, agenda items, and public comment, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay, well, first, I support Chief Moore and his report, and I agree with him. And I wasn't able to speak last week, so I wanted to officially welcome Dr. Southerns and Miss Shields. I did send an email, and Sarah said she would share it, so hopefully that took place. And on the agenda items, agenda item 3, every one of them, I approve, I support, and I need everybody to stay healthy, stay safe, and I'm sorry for some of the language and remarks of others that have spoken. They know not what they do. So thank you very much. I yield the rest of my time.
Okay, thank you.
Jason Reedy.
All right, I'm speaking on all items here today with People City Council. So last week I gave Errol Southers the welcome he deserved, but I don't want you to think that I forgot about you, Rasha. Rasha Shields is a partner at Jones Day, the same Jones Day that provided counsel for both of Donald Trump's presidential campaigns, the same Jones Day that had partners leave the firm to go work for Trump's administration, and once they returned, they were given promotions, and the same Jones Day that funds and sits on the executive committee for the Atlanta Police Foundation. Now, this is the same firm that Bootlick & Briggs called one of the premier law firms in the country. Now, partners at Jones Day make $1.3 million yearly at a minimum. In a city where the average person makes just over $30,000 a year, we witness time and time again one millionaire hop off this commission and another millionaire hop on. Now, Rasha Shields once said that she wanted to emulate Gary Allen Feast. That's correct, right? The judge who was responsible for lifting the LAPD consent decree on May 15, 2013. Now, months after reeling back the consent decree, Charlie Beck and the LAPD brass covered up their rank and file, who tampered with the voice recordings in 92 patrol cars to avoid being monitored while on duty. Steve Sobroff helped cover that up for 8 months, didn't you? Now, going back to the Atlanta Police Foundation, who are currently clear-cutting Wilani Forest as we speak. In 2021, the Atlanta Police Foundation topped all police foundations in revenue, making just over $28.1 million. And I know we're all itching to know how much of that money comes from Rasha's partners in crime. Maybe you can tell us. Okay. All that money, just like the LA Police Foundation and William H. Parker Los Angeles Police Foundation, goes towards the death and destruction of Black, brown, and poor communities. The Atlanta Police Foundation has locked arms with other agents of the state to cover up the murder of Tortuguita. Just so we're clear, pigs fired 14 times at close range while Tortuguita's hands were raised as they sat with their legs crossed. Sound familiar? Well, just like the police foundations here that partner with the likes of LAPPL, the LAPD, and this commission to cover up police murders here in Los Angeles. Now, just like the Police Foundation has worked to criminalize any pushback against this department, the Atlanta Police Foundation has worked hand in hand with the state of Georgia to make sure 42 forest defenders were charged with domestic terrorism. So how can we have a partner at a law firm like Jones Day sit and represent the people of Los Angeles while being active participant in the destruction of a forest, the criminalization of a community, and the death of anyone who dare stand up to this harm? Now, Briggs, last week I was speaking on topics on this agenda. I was speaking about a commissioner who was actively doing steroids during his time with the FBI and Santa Monica Police Department. I'm allowed to speak to his history as he is someone that is voting on the items that are on this agenda. I should be able to speak to his history and why he's not fit to serve on this commission or to say that he is fit to serve on this commission because of his past. I'm allowed to speak about his past, just like I'm allowed to speak about Russia's past, just like I'm allowed to speak about your past. I should be given that opportunity, but you allow other people on the phone to talk shit, to call black people like me thugs and all this other type of shit.
Thank you.
That's not off topic, but when I speak about facts about this motherfucker, it's off topic.
Next, we have Pastor Q. Jean-Marie.
Good morning, all.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
I would like to speak to all of them, and I would like to highlight the stresses that marginalized people feel in our society and in Los Angeles, especially when dealing with law enforcement. Irene T. Geronimo said in her book, Weathering, to the extent that you are marginalized racially, culturally, residentially, and economically, politically, you are more likely to face stressors that are constant and continuing and long-lasting. This is what is known as structural violence, a major factor in weathering. And she talks about the discrepancies in birth rates with Black mothers and all kinds of stuff that triggers Black folks in our communities. Now, I want to say this: police officers are not good people just because they're police officers. They should be good people because they're police officers. That said, we're coming out of Holy Week. I'm reminded of the story of Jesus and the rich young ruler when he called Jesus good, and Jesus replied, "Why are you calling me good? No one is good but God." So LAPD's spine motive was accountability and transparency, because no one is good but God. You need to get rid of whoever is advising you, because you speak about building trust, yet you sue a community org for information that they receive legally. You said yourself that the department made mistakes and released those names, yet you're suing the community, but you're not holding your own department accountable for the mistakes that they made. You're actually projecting that on the community. If you guys were so concerned about the officer's safety, why did you bring more attention to it in the media? This behavior is constant with your previous behavior. Instead of holding yourself accountable for your own mistakes, you shift the blame onto community members and community organizations. To add insult to injury, this is how you behave regarding privacy, for your own privacy, but you act surprised when we're attempting to protect our own privacy. Remember, we too received death threats. Dr. Melina Abdullah was swatted 3 times in 1 year, putting her and her children's life in danger. White supremacists were camped outside of her house, her home. We know because we had to go try to protect her. Based on these behaviors, it's clear which lives are important to you and which are not. But go ahead, carry on, do what you do. And as it relates to the woman with the shopping cart, there is nothing said about her, but had it been someone who had done some type of violence, you would have known everything, and everything about that individual would have been placed in the media already. It would have been in the newspaper. But I suspect she's probably someone who's houseless and suffering from mental illness. And so you don't want to put that out, because why? It doesn't fit the narrative that this is someone who's attacking you because you're a law enforcement and not someone who's actually mentally ill. We don't know the facts, so we have to speculate. But thank you. Carry on.
Thank you.
The next speaker is Megan.
Hi there. I'm here with the LAPC Fails Coalition. Today, you will be talking about the killing of 23-year-old Marvin Kua, killed last June 2nd, 2022. My sympathies go out to his family. He was fatally shot as he ran away. That fact was confirmed by the coroner's report. Marvin Kua, protected and served, I guess. When you released a critical incident video of that shooting, Captain Kelly Muniz stated that Kua was shot after taking a gun from his waistband and pointing it in the direction of the officers, but the body-worn video only shows him running away right before he was shot. Does not show him raising a gun. This is not the first time LAPD has lied, either outright or through omission in its critical incident videos, such as in the shooting of Jermaine Petit and the killing of Margarito Lopez. LAPD claims its edited videos are an understanding of what occurred based on what we know right now, but they are conveyed as the official narrative. It's another damning example of how police outright lie and get away with it as they continue to kill people. Most murderous police department in the country. So far in 2023, you have killed 4 people by fatally shooting them, a 5th person with a taser and bodily force, and a 6th person who was found dead inside the Van Nuys jail. You also continue to take resources that the community needs. Over $3 billion of the city budget goes to funding LAPD, an organization that clearly does not increase community safety or well-being, and doesn't prevent or solve crime. It in fact only contributes to it. We demand a divestment from LAPD and an investment in communities. I would also like to second the comments about how inaccessible this meeting is. I work for myself, so I can be here at 10 a.m. on Tuesday morning, but there's a lot of people who can't. It's also really intimidating to give feedback about cops when there's 20 cops in the room. I'm not somebody who's system impacted in the same way that Black and brown people are, but right now I feel really nervous and scared about the amount of law enforcement here because I've seen how violent they are. I'll yield the rest of my time. Thank you.
Okay, next we have Felix Duarte.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
Chief's comments and general comment, please.
Okay, 2 minutes.
Well, last week was pretty outrageous. It seems the inmates are running the asylum. It seems only those who are the most obnoxious and foul are allowed great latitude and more time. With that in
Directing your comments to another speaker. That's what she's doing. Directing her comments to another speaker. To other speakers.
Mr. Reedy, please, she hasn't identified anyone. Please
I
continue.
haven't.
The inmates.
Thank you.
She's not talking about the Black and brown people that come here and talk.
No, I'm not. And I like my time restored. I can't speak with other speakers.
Then come to the commission.
Please restore her to 2 minutes.
Thank you.
What?
With that in mind, with the behaviors of last week, great latitude and more time is given. So I just like to say what I have in my mind, okay? Fuck Garcetti and his legacy of corruption and vilification of our officers. That's where it's all started. Fuck the city council who don't stand behind our police and continue to vilify them. Particularly, fuck Monica Rodriguez for wielding her political witchcraft and racist remarks. Also, going to be accountable for releasing the photos and personal information of our officers. The impotence and lack of action to stop this is absolutely absurd. All those officers should be pulled off any sensitive deployments. Chief Moore, there is no mitigating the threat to our officers now. What is wrong with you, Chief Bended Knee? This was done on your watch. And as a side note, all people are marginalized in Los Angeles under the current leadership. The white supremacy rhetoric is growing old, ad nauseum, day after day after day, as the root of all evil. I support our police. I support our leadership when they support our police. Police are held accountable when they act badly. Welcome to all new board members. Look forward to hearing and working with you. Thank you.
And we have one final in-person card for Donald Harlan on items A and D.
Hi, I'm Donald Harlan. I'd like to speak on agenda items A, D, and a general comment, please. Agenda item number A, the department report for donation from the Los Angeles Police Foundation for $40 million. I'm against that. I think that money should be seized. I think that if necessary, you need to invite an outside higher government agency to seize that money. It looks like when you look at the agenda item, like they switched the purchase documents for that agenda item with some other agenda items, specifically maybe number D. They don't need $40 million to buy a generator. That doesn't look right for agenda item number A. That's fake money. That's a fake those are fake organizations you guys made up. They're funded by fake money, illegal real estate developments, fraud committed by people sitting on this police commission. It says here it was from Michael Moore and Dana Katz. The city of Los Angeles is going to be They need to have all those illegal real estate developments moved off their tax base since they're funded by government money and criminal activity by government workers and law enforcement. There's a situation where the LAPD is kind of desperate for money, and I know $40 million isn't very much considering you guys spend $3 billion a year, but still, this is illegal money, fake money. You have a fake Steve Ballmer. You have fake Katzenberg, fake Wasserman, fake Wallace Annenberg Foundation, Rick Caruso. What can we say about him? Wow, what a monster! Look at all that illegal stuff they have going on there. You think he's just developing an illegal golf course? Jacqueline Avant. Oh boy, there's a guy selling stocks with Obama in the Bahamas. All those guys committed electoral fraud. Those are my electoral votes. You guys tried to send your kids and your family members to my electoral districts, and you can never represent me. All those properties are to be taken off your tax base. I see you guys scrambling to steal money from this and that, trying to rearrange things. That $40 million on agenda item number 8 needs to be seized. And you guys need to be stopped with that criminal activity. Just so you know, if you send anybody to any part of the government in my electoral district, I will cancel anything they ever do, all of them, and the horse they rode in on.
Your time is up. Thank you. Next speaker.
Next, we have Philip Tabby.
Could I have 4 minutes, please?
Okay, 3 minutes.
Chief Moore, you are corrupt and we see right through you. Commissioners, please let me remind you of public corruption at Foothill. It's well documented in public comment going back to January of 22. I'll run down a timeline of events. Senior Lead Contreras reports public corruption by soft on crime Monica Rodriguez. In the middle of a deployment period, he was moved by the direction of the chief of police. Even though Deputy Chief brags a lot, Hamilton is a compulsive liar saying it was him, we know the truth. Mike, you, Hamilton, and myself had a sit down at OVB, and I said to you, if something happens to Captain Smith, we will know something fishy is definitely going on. You thought you could get rid of me, and boy, you were wrong. A news article breaks. Smith he was hit with public corruption. Oh, I'm sorry. He spoke of public corruption to the FBI. Bravo to Smith and Contreras for upholding the oath that they took to become a police officer. 2 weeks later, Smith was demoted to a captain, moved out of Foothill. Commissioners, you're asking yourself why. Well, Smith responded to a fireworks investigation while off duty with his date. While there, Smith allegedly said something to a gang officer and hurt his feelings, so he reported it. As far as I know, that complaint still has not been signed off by the chief. Smith was punished and guilty before a trial. Chief Bended Knee Moore just wanted to gain soft on crime Monica Rodriguez's vote and proceed with trumped up charges. Let me remind you, Monica led the defund the LAPD movement, but that's not all. Guess who recommended Smith's transfer and demotion? Assistant Chief Chris Pitcher, the same Assistant Chief Pitcher I heard who glossed over and didn't investigate a misogynistic complaint with a woman command staff employee as the victim. The same Assistant Chief Chris Pitcher who stayed behind with the ladies at Salt Creek during the infamous bomb situation in South Los Angeles. Mike, you told everyone you got rid of the bomb squad command staff, but all you did was promote one of them to a deputy chief. The same Assistant Chief Pitcher who created an international incident by detaining a French national in France. It really seems that you're creating a bad culture within the LAPD, Mike. I have photos of you drunk in Vegas with the city attorney. The same city attorney that sits on the federal credit board that sends you on all of your trips, like Italy, when Officer Arroyos was killed and you never responded, or Arizona so you could recruit baseball players. Let's not forget about Idaho when 3 officers were shot. If you could not be there for your officers at that time, then it shows you're not a leader. By the way, pay for your own trips. You got enough money. Smith had stellar career with no complaints. I dare you to sit down and have lunch with him and listen to what he has to say. I cannot prove it yet, but I would bet that you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Angelina.
Good morning. All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
I agree with everything the last speaker said as well. Thank you for being the citizen's voice in police affairs. I hope you are listening to all our voices because it's difficult to hear voices if other voices are disrupting when it is not their turn to speak. Last week was a clown show. The clowns were in the audience, but you commissioners were the bigger clowns because you allowed it to happen. How can we have civil discourse if simple rules are not enforced? It's a penal code, 403 PC, and you lack leadership if you cannot enforce the law. President Briggs, what will be the consequences for people who disrupt? A judge has control of the courtroom. So why can't you have control of this commission meeting? It is hard enough to take time out of our day to speak at this meeting, but to be heckled and disrupted is unacceptable, and it discourages people from making public comment if a mob can take over your meeting. President Briggs, you didn't even say anything during last week's meeting when the crowd repeatedly disrupted Mr. Tabby's public speaking time, including a childish countdown. Where are we? A middle school classroom? And that's the problem we have today. No respect. It starts in the home, but parents don't discipline their children, and those children never grow up. This lack of discipline spills over into our schools, which are failing, and society where criminals feel like they are the victims and they take no responsibility for their actions, but blame the police officers. These police officers actually did something with their lives to take responsibility. They work hard and they give back to society to keep it safe and orderly. However, your commission meetings are not safe or orderly. We desperately want safety and order. We want more police, not less. New York City has 35,000 officers, and we only have 9,000 officers. Our population is less than half their population. So why isn't our number of officers closer to 15,000 to have a fair and equal ratio? That's not equitable, is it? Now, some people scream they want to defund, disarm, dismantle, and abolish police, but our cries are just as loud, and we are not going away, and we will not be intimidated. Who are you going to call when your loved one is raped, your business robbed, your home broken into, your children hit and killed by reckless and drunk drivers? Ghostbusters? I don't think so. We need criminals to be arrested and held accountable. We want justice and equal protection under the law. Is LAPD perfect? By no means, but let's work with what we have and keep them accountable as well. Do LAPD officers always return emails and phone calls? No. When we have to call 911, do they pick up fast enough? No. Does LAPD respond fast enough? No. Are there enough patrol cars in our area? No. Do we feel safe to bring our kids to the park? No. LAPD officers are retiring and moving away at a faster rate than they are being recruited. We are in a big dilemma, but we, the citizens of Los Angeles, need to help the situation, not make it worse. I would encourage each of you to reach out to your SLOs and communicate with them about your needs. And thank you, Foothill Division, for recently visiting local private schools to meet with administrators about how to better safeguard their campuses and how to respond to a shooter on campus. That is being proactive instead of only reactive. So thank you, and I encourage all of LAPD to do this throughout LA.
Okay, thank you. Next.
Before we go to the next speaker, I want to remind everyone in the room who is speaking over speakers that we have, your actions are disruptive. I would ask that you not do so any further. When you're speaking, when you're afforded the opportunity to speak, no one is speaking over you. And so I would ask that you engage in the same opportunity. Mr. Reedy, please. I'm asking you, when other people are speaking, stop speaking over them. Thank you. You should do the same. Can we go to the next speaker, please?
Next, we have Jamie.
Thanks. I'll speak on all items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay. Say it right off the bat. That little whining episode from Chief Moore better not be included in the 45 minutes of total public comment, okay? Anyway, this backlash to Watch the Watchers continues to be absolutely absurd. The idea that we're not allowed to know what the cops look like when they literally work for us and they steal such a violent proportion of our city budget is so fucking ludicrous. How are you worried about the safety of cops when they're the ones who are armed? And let's be honest, they're always armed, whether they're on duty or not. How are you worried about them when they're the ones who are allowed to come into our fucking communities, our houses, our spaces, and shoot us with complete impunity? How the fuck is having cops' profiles on Watch the Watchers any more invasive than you guys strategically stockpiling pictures and all kinds of other wildly intrusive personal information on your databases about people who you guys have arbitrarily decided are criminals, literally only because they're Black or brown or poor or unhoused? It's not even remotely comparable, actually, because you guys systematically use that information to target those quote unquote criminals. And we're literally just posting your information. And like, hello, police officers wanted to become police officers. They wanted the weapons and the huge salaries, and they wanted all the ass kissing from the media that they get around the goddamn clock from every news source except for like 5 publications sometimes. They're public employees and they have infinite power over us. The very smallest way we can protect ourselves against them is to know what the fuck they look like and what their badge numbers are. Like, this is boilerplate stuff. So yeah, this department's reaction to Watch the Watchers is just the clearest proof anybody needs that all you guys fear is hearing the truth. About what you actually do, which is not provide any kind of safety or protection, and certainly not any service, lol, to our communities, but to sow racist violence and wantonly keep murdering the most underserved and vulnerable citizens of LA. Fuck you all for daring to play the victim. What an insult to the memories of the actual victims of your violence and to their families. And you're enacting that victimization right now in every way that you're running this meeting. I can't see all the room that you're in, which is a fucked up access issue in its own way. Not least because it means I have to stare at nothing but all your hideous fucking faces the whole time. But I know it's just swarmed in the background with cops. Why do you need weapons in this room at all? You already made everybody go through a ridiculous, intrusive, and useless TSA screening. You know the public who's come here today is not armed. So yeah, it's disgusting and pathetic that you guys are really that afraid to hear the truth from the people you allegedly serve and protect. Every part of you as an alleged civilian oversight commission is bullshit, just like LAPD.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Steve Rogers.
Good morning.
Good morning. What items would you like to speak on?
All items, please.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Blessed are the peacemakers. They shall be called the children of God. I want to make sure that I denounce any vandalism against any house of worship, whether it's a Catholic church, Christian church, Jewish synagogue, Islamic center, or mosque, or whatever denomination or faith it might be. It's a felony crime. And I was delighted to hear that an investigation was done and an arrest was made, and there will be a prosecution on the Islamic Center. And that suspect was named by the chief as Carlos Moran, a 43-year-old male Hispanic. Now, in contrast, I want to bring up, because we're not forgetting, the crime that was committed at Olvera Street, where a Catholic saint statue was pulled down by a mob. There is no way that those suspects could not be identified. If you know the location, it is like a fishbowl. It is across from Union Station. Los Angeles Street goes right by it, freeway access. Why has there not been a follow-up and an arrest on that case? There has to be one standard. And so equal resources have to be applied. And in that case, I don't believe it has occurred. There also was 2 vandalisms committed at St. Peter's at 1039 North Broadway on the edge of Chinatown, where an individual named Cipriano was injured in one of the incidents, and yet no arrest was done. And where is the follow-up? What is the progress on those cases? Are they being investigated at all? And why was not an arrest made? I do believe that at the time, Mayor Ratzetti probably told the LAPD not to respond to the park where the St. Sarah statue was pulled down. If you want to see victims of crime, homicides, thank you for putting up that information on the website. I encourage everyone to look at it. I would also suggest that perhaps you put the information on the suspect if there's no arrest. I commend the homicide detectives in LAPD for the hard work making those arrests in those homicide cases, the most serious crime. Good work, keep it up, but we could use more information on outstanding suspects attached. As far as the arson on Southwest Station, that obviously was a crime and an arson that is, stop making excuses for criminal behavior. There are people that come in here and attack the LAPD as being racist and murderers. It's ridiculous. Again, the real victims are listed on the website, and everyone should take a look at those victims. And also, could we get the demographic information on the suspects? I've continually asked for that from crime reports. Other people attack the LAPD as being racist. They use class warfare, racial warfare against a department that doesn't deserve that. They deserve the support, and the vast majority of people do support the LAPD. You should move the meetings.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mr. G.
The next speaker, please.
Mr. G, you're on.
All right. I'll speak on all items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
All right. So I'll start with some of the consent agenda items. So we have $40,000 for a simulator from the Police Foundation. Again, the Police Foundation needs to go. It's just like the Atlanta Police Foundation that's funding Cop City in Atlanta. That needs to go. We shouldn't have simulators for the police. Now moving on to, there's a donation for a almost $7,000 storage shed. Why do we need $7,000 for a storage shed? That should not be, that's not something that seems to be necessary. We have training for the Valley Traffic Division so that more money for them to pull over people and shoot some people, you know. Like, we don't want training, we want less, we want defunding and abolition. Moving on to the chief's report. The chief's report should be limited to 3 minutes like everyone else. Everyone gets 3 minutes, the chief should get 3 minutes. So yeah, and with Watch the Watchers, the only people that are in danger right now is the public, because the cops are putting people in danger. When the cops show up to a situation, everyone else gets significantly less, is now put in significant danger because these armed agents of the state with guns and the authority to shoot and kill. And we know this commission is going to, you know, every time someone gets shot and killed, this police commission will go ahead and say that it was in policy, no punishments, no consequences. It's just perfectly fine for the cops to shoot and kill people over and over and over and over and over and over and over again. So there was someone shot in the Van Nuys station, which is in my community. There's someone who was killed at that prison. We're not really sure how that person was killed, but that person is now dead in your custody. So you probably killed that person. Prisons are violence and kill people. Policing is violence and kills people. The LAPD, you need to start actually responding to CPRA requests. I have multiple CPRA requests. They've now delayed responding them for like 3 to 4 months. They're simple things that are on the, that you can easily get. And it's the LAPD violating my rights and the rights of other people. And you don't want to get it because we know it's damning for you.
Okay, thank you. Next, we have Mike C.
And this is the last speaker, Madam Secretary.
Mike C, you're on.
Okay. Good morning. I'm speaking on all items.
Okay, 3 minutes.
Okay. So it's been 2 years, 2 years, 9 months, and 23 days since a hate crime occurred in downtown Los Angeles. A Catholic iconic statue that's been there for years was torn down by a quote unquote indigenous group in conjunction with another group, not indigenous, but think they are, BLM, the same group that Chief Moore bowed down to during the 2020 summer of riots, and where he earned the name Chief Bended Knee. So here we are as a Catholic group, and the Catholic community is a real community, unlike so many other ones I hear based on skin color. That's odd. We're an actual community based in faith. As I look around my church on Sunday, I see every skin color possible, and it's great. We are not based on any specific group or ethnicity. It's everybody's there. We're all there. I want to know why nothing's been done about this hate crime. Although it was good to hear that the person was caught on the vandalism of the Islamic place. That's great to hear. I love that they caught somebody for that, and they're going to prosecute this guy. But why is the one for the Catholics? Why is that one not taken care of now? They've already put up a display where you can take your phone over the torn down statue, the stump that's there of a statue, and you can do this little video display of an indigenous thing that's happening. No one can look up pictures of people on the internet standing on the ropes they tore the statue down with. I did it in 5 minutes. I can see the guy standing there on the ropes in the pictures. Kind of looks like if you're at the scene of the crime and you're on the element of the crime, that's the ropes, you probably are the ones that did it. Wouldn't be too hard to figure out who they are. I figured it out, and the LAPD is far more educated in investigating than I am. I'm just a citizen. I have no experience in doing this stuff. So wondering why that's not being done. I yield my time.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. That ends public comment. At this time, we're going to go to item 3 on the agenda, the consent agenda items. Are there any commissioners who want to discuss any of the items under the consent agenda? Seeing none, I move that we approve items 3A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and H. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Mr. Reedy, you're disrupting the meeting. Can you please stop disrupting the meeting? Ms. Viola, you're disrupting the meeting. Can you please stop? Thank you. At this time, we're going to go to item 4 on the agenda, the regular agenda item. Ms. Viola, please, you're disrupting the meeting. I may ask you to leave. Can the department come forward with the RIPA report, please? Mr. Reedy, please leave the meeting. Welcome, everyone. Good morning, Captain. The floor is yours.
Good morning.
Morning.
I said good morning to you guys earlier. It was nice meeting you or talking to you this morning, but I am here today. My name is Captain Stephen Ramos. I'm the commanding officer of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Division. With me this morning is Director Elizabeth Rhodes of the Office of Constitutional Policing and Policy, along with Commander Ruby Flores, our Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Officer for the department, and Sandra Russell, the Assistant Commanding Officer of Information Technology Bureau. We are here today to provide you with an update on the department's efforts as it relates to Assembly Bill 953, commonly known as the Racial and Identity Profiling Act, or RIPA. We would like to share with you today a video presentation that covers the newly developed RIPA Community Dashboard. With this dashboard, we hope to provide the communities we serve with valuable information regarding vehicle, pedestrian, and bicycle stops. Before we start the video, let me first provide a little background on how the dashboard came into fruition and some of the efforts we've done over the last couple of years for AB 953. In 2001, the department began collecting stop data as part of the federal consent decree, and we collected information on our vehicle and pedestrian stops. This data collection began as a paper form. In 2010, our Application Development and Support Division created what we currently use as our automated field data report. So the officers now input that information electronically on their mobile digital computers in their car or on their smartphones to make it a lot easier for data input. In 2015, Assembly Bill 953 was passed, which required all law enforcement agencies in the state to report their stops as relates to vehicle and pedestrian stops as well, and any stop that results, or any consensual encounter that resulted in a search. So basically tracking all of our stops throughout the department. Our Application Development and Support Division updated the database in 2018 in July when our department was required to start reporting to the state. We've been reporting ever since then. And then in 2019, we submitted our first reports covering the second half of 2018. That information is also posted on the California Department of Justice website. All of our data is also posted on the city's open data portal, so it's available to any member of the public. In 2020, the Officer and Inspector General reviewed our stop data for 2019 and provided recommendations on how to improve the RIPA process within the department. One of those recommendations included publishing regular reports and making all stop data available to the public through the city's open data portal. Currently, all the stop data, as I mentioned, is already on the portal, and we've now created a RIPA community dashboard that provides more visualizations and makes it a lot easier for the public to consume a lot of that information. This dashboard was developed by working with department subject matter experts and input and recommendations from community members on our RIPA Community Steering Committee. I would just like to briefly acknowledge and thank each of the 6 members that participated over the last about 6 months or so trying to put this together. Adela Barajas is a community advocate and founder of LAURA, which is the Life After Uncivil Ruthless Act. David Crippens is a member of Los Angeles Workforce Development Board. Fabian Garcia is the Director of Government Relations for Homeboy Industries. Judy Lamb is a partner in litigation practice of Maynard Cooper and serves on the board of Asian Americans Advancing Justice. Tao Tran is Mid-City West board member and part of the LAPD Wilshire Division Community Police Advisory Board. And finally, Pastor J. Edgar Boyd, the First African Methodist Episcopal Church of Los Angeles. So they were instrumental in providing their input and recommendations as we move through each iteration of the community dashboard we'll show you today. The dashboard itself is a Microsoft Power BI application that's overlaid our database. We leverage our existing contract with Microsoft and the licensing that we have with them, so it did not cost the department or the city any additional funding to create this dashboard. I would just like to thank Application Development Support Division. They partnered with my team over at Diversity, Equity, Inclusion Division. Really, I just want to point out 2 individuals. Sebla Asfu is a city contractor that works for Information Technology Bureau, which they were kind enough to loan her over to us 2 days a week to build this dashboard because of her expertise with Power BI. And then Ramon Moreno is a police performance auditor that works in DEID, who really self-taught himself how to use this system, fine-tune the dashboard. We worked with NYPD, San Diego, and some other departments that are kind of at the forefront of putting out information with the public in terms of stops. So they were instrumental in building this. Without those 2, we would never have been able to accomplish what we did with the dashboard. So with that, I would like to present you the department's Community RIPA dashboard. And if you can please play the video so we can see what we do.
Today, I'd like to demonstrate the Community Racial Identity Profiling Act dashboard, also known as the Community RIPA dashboard. In this video, we will demonstrate how to use the dashboard. We have also included a link to a PowerPoint presentation that will assist you on navigating the dashboard. We have created 6 interactive pages displaying the stop data documented by LAPD officers, as required by the Racial and Identity Profiling Act. This data is collected by our officers after every vehicle and pedestrian stop and consensual encounter with a search. The following pages are the overview, perceived race, actions taken, searches, contraband, and finally, results. We have also included additional links, such as the California Department of Justice website. This site gives you access to the stop data submitted by the California law enforcement agencies and the Cal DOJ RIPA Advisory Board reports. The next link directs you to the City of Los Angeles's open portal site that has all LAPD stop data. We have also included a link back to the LAPD online RIPA page where you can view our department policies and training related to vehicle and pedestrian stops. Let's begin with the overview page. On this page, you can view the following information: the number of individuals stopped, the number of stops based on the officer's reason for the stop, such as a traffic violation and reasonable suspicion of a crime. This table is broken down by the officer's initial perception of the individual's race, the number of stops based on the officer's reason for the stop. However, this table is broken down by the officer's duty assignment. Example of an officer's assignment are patrol, gang enforcement, and detectives. The number of individuals stopped by the division of assignment of the officer conducting the stop. The number of individuals stopped for pretextual and non-pretextual reasons. A pretext stop is when officers use reasonable suspicion or probable cause of a minor code violation as a pretext to investigate another, more serious crime that is unrelated to the violation. All other stops will be categorized as a non-pretextual stop. The number of individuals stopped based on stop type, such as vehicle driver, vehicle passenger, pedestrian, or bicyclist. The radio call field displays the number of individuals stopped during an officer's responses to radio calls. For example, officers shall select yes if they conducted a stop on an individual who matched the description of a suspect described in a radio call. Finally, a map to show where the stops are occurring. You can adjust this page to view a specific date range and geographic area. Let's review Central Area's 2022 stops. To adjust the date range, select the date range filter located at the top left of the page. Next, to view the stops occurring in Central Area, select the appropriate box. By selecting a geographic area, the dashboard will display all the stops conducted by officers within your selection, regardless of the officer's division of assignment. In this example, you will view all the stops made within the boundaries of Central Division, which include stops made by Central Traffic Division and Newton Division. You can view multiple divisions simultaneously by selecting the divisions you wish to view. Once a filter is applied, the dashboard will adjust the data on the page based on your selections. We have created two tables to show the number of individuals stopped. You can view these tables as whole numbers or percentages. To change these tables to percentages, select the percentage button located at the top of the page. To change the tables back to a whole number, select the total button located at the top of the page. Throughout the dashboard, there are opportunities to learn about what some of the data categories mean. The presence of this additional information is denoted by the info symbol. When you place your cursor over the info symbol, a pop-up window containing helpful information about the data will appear. The dashboard does allow you to focus on one specific data value and its related data. For example, you can focus your view on traffic violations for individuals who were perceived as Asian. All of the information on this page, including the map, will adjust based on your selection. You can also combine additional data values. For example, you can narrow your search to include how many people were stopped by officers assigned to patrol or traffic-related assignments. The map feature allows you to see an approximate location of where stops are occurring. The pie charts offer a visual representation of the stop types that occurred. We have also included a legend on the top of the map to assist you with reviewing the data. The next page is the perceived race page. As you move through the dashboard, each page will keep your selected date and division filters from the previous page. This page will show you the following information: perceived race of the individual stopped, perceived race by age range, perceived gender, perceived LGBTQ+ identity, perceived disability, and if the officers could determine the race of the individual prior to the stop. You can also see the number of individuals stopped by placing your cursor over the information you wish to view. A pop-up window will appear with a bar graph and the number of individuals stopped for a specific category. We've included the 2020 census data. This data is based on the division that you have selected to view. To view this data, place your cursor over the census text. A bar graph will appear and show the relevant census data. Similar to the overview page, these additional pages are interactive and will adjust based on your selection. The next page is the Actions Taken page. This page will show you the actions taken by officers during a stop, and it is broken down by race. Officers are required to report any of the 23 actions taken during a stop. They can select one or more of these actions, such as handcuffing an individual, conducting a search of a person or property, and if the person was ordered out of the vehicle. The next page is the Searches page. This page will show how many individuals were stopped, and of those stopped, how many were searched. This information is located at the top of the page. The graph to the left shows how many individuals were searched and how many individuals had their property searched by an officer. The graph to the right shows the officer's reason for the search, such as officer safety, incident to arrest, vehicle inventory, and if consent was given. The next page is the Contraband Evidence Discovered page. This page will show the number of individuals stopped, the number of individuals searched, total of individuals searched with contraband or evidence, and the total of individuals searched with no contraband or evidence discovered. The graph shows the number of individuals found with contraband or evidence, such as alcohol, narcotics, firearms, or other weapons. The last page is the Results page. This page displays the outcome of the stop as indicated by the officers. Officers can select one or more options, such as a citation, warning, arrest, and field interview card. The details on this page are also broken down by race. The Community RIPA dashboard is available to our community members as well as anyone else that has interest in the detailed data collected. Building trust and transparency are the department's goals and values when serving our diverse communities. We hope that the RIPA dashboard will further reinforce those values. We thank you for your time and interest in the Los Angeles Police Department's Community RIPA dashboard.
Captain Ramos, thank you for a phenomenal presentation, and please thank Lieutenant White, whose voice I recognized. She did a great job there. And I just want to ensure that this is information, what we just saw is information now that the public will have access to. Is that correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And how is it being made available to the public? Do they have to log on to lapdonline.org and then they can navigate to this type of a dashboard, or is it division specific? Can you explain that?
Yes, sir. So currently the dashboard's being tested on our LAPD online test site to make sure everything's working correctly and then there's no security or data issues. So we anticipate this will launch and go live within 4 to 6 weeks. It will be on our LAPD online site. And I think we're working through with media relations right now to determine exactly where it would fit in. We think there'll be several links, one within Officer Constitutional Policy and Policing. The other one, there's a crime tab that drops down to all of our statistics. And there's a space in there we could put RIPA. And then there'd be a homepage with a little mission statement, a bunch of the links for the training directives and policies, the instructional video we just showed here, along with a PowerPoint that actually walks you through more details on how to use the dashboard, and then the dashboard itself. So that's the plan right now. So we'll be available to anyone on LAPD Online.
Great. I want to get a little granular for a moment.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So I understand that all of the captains and commanders in the specific divisions have now been trained on this system, correct?
Yes, sir.
And the patrol officers themselves, what type of information have they been provided to ensure that we are capturing the best data?
So we're working on several things. So when we started this unit, I think in August of 2021, that was also one of the IG's recommendations for data accuracy and completeness and thoroughness. So we developed a training notebook divider that actually walks them through step by step how to fill out the actual form. There was a lot of confusion in terms of most of this form are state requirements and state terminology. So there was some confusion on what a curbside detention meant, what seizing property is and versus actually booking evidence. So we worked through them with that. So there's been continuous ongoing training. Most of the divisions have now assigned a RIPA coordinator that actually reviews all of the data entry coming in. And then we've developed a kickback mechanism. So if we're finding errors in there, The RIPA coordinators are the kind of subject matter experts about what each of these should say, and then push them back. Since my unit came into effect, we made several changes to the intake process itself and revised the AFDR policy to include the new requirements for driver, vehicle, passenger, and pedestrian. We keep an eye on the RIPA recommendations from the state board and try to apply what their recommendations are to what we're capturing currently. We are currently working on that for the 2024 recommendations that have already passed into law and will be effective in January. We are trying to work with Application Development Support Division to modernize a little bit the user interface to make it easier, kind of like a TurboTax model I think we've talked about, to make it simpler for the officers to navigate through there, because there are a lot of fields to go through, as well as there are going to be a lot more. We've worked with New York PD, San Diego PD, that have been doing this for a while as well, to see how they're capturing that information. Honestly, ours is one of the easier ones. New York has a driver report and a pedestrian report that they fill out that is very lengthy, but they do a very detailed CompStat process, which we've begun CompStat now for the past year. So we're educating that way as we find training opportunities and perceived or real disparities. We'll work with those individual commands to find out what's going on in that. Is it a training issue? Is it an issue we can work with through policy, which we've done as well. So there's an ongoing effort. So my unit has been dubbed, looking at, analyzing, researching, and making sure we're looking at the data accuracy on an ongoing basis. Audit Division has done several audits and inspections to ensure that they're actually being completed. The Office of Operation has an ongoing inspection to ensure the FDRs are being completed and comparing that to the log to make sure it's in there. So we're trying to ensure that they're actually being completed out and thorough. We're also trying to come up with some automated systems through the AFDR to cross-reference the incident number with the FDR number to automatically do that, so not make it so manual for us to review that process. So we're doing a lot of things to continually look at that and make sure we're actually complying with what we need to.
Okay, thank you. So, and one more question before I ask other commissioners if they have questions. With respect to the patrol officers, are you getting any pushback that this is a lot of data, that this is taking too much of their time? So, for example, they stop someone, they have to go back into their patrol car, they're working on a small screen in their car, they can't see all the fields, they don't know if they missed something, what are they gonna do? Do they have to really complete it then and there? So are there errors made in that real world sense?
Yes, that's been going on since 2010. So I think it was funny, in preparation for this, I was going through the old bubble sheet we used to fill out when I was an officer, and then there was a pod that was this little weird electronic device you would punch into. So since 2010, they've had the same system. So if you talk to a motor cop, they can blaze through this thing with 2 fingers, and they're very good at it. The new patrol officers coming on, or maybe I've been on for 25 years, so some of the older folks have problems with this. Some of the newer generation, they don't know anything else, so they've been doing it. They do offer, and they're very vocal about ways to improve the system. The challenge has been, trying to have an expert come in and build a new database or redo the user interface for the current one. So that's what we're trying to modernize and come up with now. We do it very thoughtfully, realizing these are state mandates, so we can't get around certain information that we have to capture. And then there's other information that the department is deemed important to capture, so we're doing that as well. We're trying to make it as simple and as easy as possible. So that is an ongoing conversation. We do have SMEs from training, from traffic, that work with us to figure out how to make things easier. So it's an ongoing discussion, sir.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Sobroff, any questions?
Sure. Well, you asked the big ones. I have a couple of little ones, but first of all, just the presentation, the way it works, is really just terrific. It's terrific. It can and seems so flexible for people to utilize it for specific areas that you may be able to determine something that needs change or not. How many total? I only have one question. How many total incidents or how many total inputs into this system will there be in a year?
So I can tell you right now.
Millions?
We've actually been declining in stops each year. So when we first started looking at this, so let me back up a second, I apologize. On the database itself, or the dashboard we just showed you, it's all the data from 2019 moving forward. On the open portal, it's everything we've collected since the beginning of working on this. So we did revise the open portal as part of the OIG recommendations to mirror what the state requirements are. So everything is on there other than personal identifying information. So that's been updated as well. So anybody can download it. It's not the easiest thing to navigate. So everything from 2019 on is in there. So in 2019, we did 712,000 entries or stops. In 2020, 521,000. In 2021, 429,000. And then last year, about 331,000. We're down about 6 to 7% from last year. So I think moving forward, we'll probably average around at least 300,000 entries, if not more, each year.
And if every stop that you actually wanted in there happened, what would the number be?
Looking at the error rates in terms of what we're finding that are not being inputted,
Yeah.
I think when we first started looking at this years ago, when that gang thing and the OIG came out, I think we were around 70 or 80%. I think we're upwards of 95% now because it's so easy to track. And I think as we make this automated, I'm hopeful with the next iteration of this, we'll be able to track it almost to 100% because we're tying it with an incident number. And with the new RMS coming online, everything will be interconnected, which is what the goal is. So, and I think our plan moving forward is right now this is a standalone system. The goal is with RMS comes online with Motorola that we transition to one module for everything. So we'll be able to track that and be able to, in real time, assess what's being completed, what's not being.
So the goal is 100%, obviously, but right now, would you think we're at 60, 80?
No, I think we're well above the 90% range just from the audits we're doing with Audit Division.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Sobroff. Commissioner Shields.
Yes, thank you. And thank you, Captain, for the great presentation. And thank you to you and your team for doing such a great job on this dashboard. And please extend our warm thank you to the 6 community members who are on the RIPA steering committee, because I think having their input throughout this process is very important and crucial. And so I understand it. So the dashboard is in addition to all of the raw data that you're continuing to make available through the city portal. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
And the raw data is what is actually required under the law.
Yes, ma'am.
And the dashboard is something that's not required by any law.
No, not at all.
But you're making it more kind of accessible to the community and also to researchers. I feel like you've probably saved researchers hours and hours of time with this dashboard.
Yes, ma'am. We work with a few academic researchers on the RIPA data.
Yeah. Are you aware, I'm not aware of any other police department in the nation that has anything similar to this. Are you aware of any?
So Suffolk PD in New York, they have something similar. I don't think it's as interactive as ours. We were trying to work with them. Their site was down because of issues being hacked and everything. I just learned Oregon, actually the state has a very robust, they have a policy much like ours or state law that came into effect right around the same time with the same tiered approach. So they have a board similar to our advisory board from the state. They do a couple of different studies on there of a 3-tier system for reviewing it. And I looked at their website. It's more charts and graphs and posted. I didn't see anything interactive. NYPD we met with last week. They're looking at we showed them ours. We stole a lot from them because they do a great job with Power BI, but it's mostly internal. So this is the first one that's going external. So we're working with them to see how ours is accepted by the community, how we do it. So I think we'll see a lot more departments come on board with similar systems now that the technology is there.
Great, thank you so much.
Commissioner Suthers.
Well, yes, first I'd like to echo the comments of Commissioner Shields with regards to the thanks and recognition for all the work done. Chief, thank you, and checking another box for transparency. I would like to ask you 2 things. You're in a 4 to 6 week testing phase. What's the strategy to make the public aware of a tool like this?
Currently, the plan was to do a soft launch, meaning put it out there, and then work with folks at the Community Steering Committee and other folks like our community advisory boards and other ones that are really involved with what the department does, good or bad, either way, and then get some feedback from them to see if there's anything we just missed the mark on. It is fairly simple to change some of the things. So if there's something, hey, we just completely missed it, could we add this or change this or revise that? And then once we're satisfied that and again, I think the chief and the director call it version 1.0. So there'll be more iterations to follow depending on what the community needs or is asking for, or the board or anyone else. So that's the plan right now. And then soon thereafter, do a very public launch. And that was one of the recommendations from David Crippens. He's like, this is something that the community needs to know about and need to be aware of. So the thought process was to do something very public about putting it out there, and then also have the individual 21 commands throughout the city have their own kind of community town hall to socialize it with their members. And I think the commander and I are what we're calling the unity tour, to go out there and be present, to make sure we have some consistent messaging about having these conversations with the community members, because some of them will be difficult, and applying the context to, you're well aware of this, with a lot of data, it can be misinterpreted or interpreted in many ways. So we just want to apply context, not so much a defensive posture, but explain what the data actually means and have open discussions about that.
Excellent. So having been witness to some of the incredible talent you have on your team, I would highly encourage that as you solicit feedback, you look at a demographic that's really tech savvy with regards to how the dashboard might be improved or other things that might be better. The second question is about data, of course. And you mentioned Suffolk and you mentioned Oregon. I'm particularly interested in what we might be able to do in terms of behavioral analytics. Two fields. The first one, is there some consideration being given to behavioral analytics as it might relate to officer safety issues that come out of these stops in your data? And conversely, might there be an opportunity to capture behavior on possible misconduct in the field as a result of these stops from your data?
Yeah, so we work with California Policy Lab, and we've worked with a couple of other academics that would like to do some studies. I know we talked about, I think last week, there's one talking about using AI to look at the tone of how the officers are speaking, what they're saying. Is there ways to de-escalate or opportunities there for training? So a lot of times officers aren't aware of what they're saying or how they're saying it can be implied. There was also another study that I think they're trying to do right now, looking at our body-worn video and digital core video to look at body language and mannerisms and how that's being approached, also in terms of training and interactions with the public to improve it. So I think those could both be used for training in terms of how we get a little look at ourselves and how we're being portrayed with the public. So I think those are the two most readily available ones in terms of opportunities for training and education for the public as well, as far as, because most of these studies will be published and how we're working on that. Internally, we look at it a lot, just looking at the data to try and see things that you just wouldn't otherwise see. Do we remove people from a vehicle at a higher rate in other areas? Are there training opportunities there? Or are there just things when you look at black and white data that just stand out? And then is it a policy issue or training issue? So we try to look at those as opportunities as well. And then we're looking forward to any academics that we could actually work with to see what their thoughts are. We did meet with PORAC last week to look at or 2 weeks ago, I think it was, other ways to actually analyze the data other than just strictly population, looking at victim and suspect demographics, issues in underserved communities, homeless. I mean, there were so many factors that could be brought into it to try and get a true representation of what the data actually means and how we can utilize that. And I'm on continuous calls with Oregon and not Oregon, I'm going to start meeting with Oregon, but New York and San Diego and Suffolk to try and see what are they seeing on there and what else could we be using that we're not utilizing here.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Briggs?
Sure.
Briggs, if
Sure,
we have
Chief.
no other questions, I'd like to put a capstone on this if I could, just
Absolutely,
from a
Chief.
standpoint. So I want to echo the congratulations and thanks and appreciation to Director Rhodes, Commander Flores, Captain Ramos, Sandy Russell from RTV, the efforts of Shannon White and Lieutenant White in regards to not just her narrative, but her insight in developing this. This is another block of work. It is, but I wouldn't want this moment to pass without talking about the fact that this is not an end of itself. This is the next step for the department as it, under the leadership of Director Rhodes, develops and defines utility to the Racial Identity Profiling Act data collection that has been going on in this department for more than 2 decades. The amount of data that is gathered in these stops, to the Commissioner's question about is it burdensome? Yes, absolutely. And it is minutes that are taken in each of those transactions to fill it. Some minutes by motor officers perhaps faster than others that fill it out less frequently, and certainly the accuracy of this has also been a challenge for us. I'm proud of the work that over the years we've tried to address this. We moved from a paper-based system to an inadequate but nonetheless technology solution that we still have. The next iteration, which is the record management system by Motorola, will incorporate this collection at the same time we collect information on the traffic stop, or we go out and conduct an investigative report or an arrest. So this is the next step, though, that for the public has not had access to this in any type of easy-to-use manner. It was a spreadsheet of data that you just get lost in. This is efforting to give them some ability that they have a theory, they have a thought, and observation to explore and see how it changes, those data points change over the course of the entire department, over the course of the city. This also is part of, this is the next iteration of our internal look of this, using this new software to evaluate our own policies, procedures, and tactics. And this has been used internally now for this last year as a reminder to the commission with your policy development of the pretext stop policy. The use of a ComStat inspection, a periodic calling of all commands throughout the city to come in to an inspection where we take this data and we look at much in a similar manner as you see here, and we look at what is the frequency of pretext stops and what are the circumstances in which the use of a pretext stop. And as a reminder, as a policy, the department adopted and training in delivery was stressing the fact that we want officers to be proactive and conduct pretext stops on matters of serious public safety issues. At the same time, minor equipment infractions that in the absence of any other information is nothing more than a missing front plate, so to speak, does not warrant police action. This data allows us to explore all the way down to an area level and down to a unit level adherence to that policy. So Commissioner, your point about does it identify potential misconduct, or to a lesser point, areas for need for training and development as we steer our officers into being more selective. Many people see fewer stops as saying, well, fewer stops means less public safety. We see the importance of identifying target specific stops on the basis of substantial articulated information as being warranting the stop and also of improving public safety. What we've seen since the implementation, I've seen, witnessed since this effort has been going on now for a couple years, is that officers are becoming more refined in their stopping. They're stopping fewer people, but they're having the same outcomes or better in regards to arrests of criminal offenders and recovery of firearms. Two areas that just 5 years ago was a great deal of concern that any type of reduction would result in hundreds of criminals and thousands of guns that would go uncaptured. So now the public has the ability throughout the city and throughout, really whoever has access to these machines will have the ability to go online and see how does this actually apply to their neighborhood and more broadly to the city. It also is helping us as we work internally, because our next step beyond pretext stops is to look at the reason or the instances of searches. And what we found most recently is that there was a lacking of direction of policy and training in regards to the practices of officers asking individuals or directing individuals from vehicles. While the law allows for officers to direct anyone from a vehicle on a basis of a lawful stop or detention, we don't want to see that happen, for that to occur just as a matter of routine. It should be based on some more specific needs regarding officer safety. We don't want to see officers not directing people from vehicles because of a concern of a data point, and then subjecting themselves to possibly being killed by someone from inside that vehicle. But conversely, everyone that is stopped the merits of having everyone exit the vehicle is also lacking. This is going to allow us both internally and externally to have those conversations, because at the end of the day, this is about building trust in our communities, that communities both and our communities we serve, as well as the community of law enforcement, that we see the impact that individual decisions in the aggregate can have as to a sense of safety, of trust and confidence that we're going to act in a constitutional fashion. A little bit longer than perhaps I wanted to start with this, but I wanted to say that this is, again, I'm proud of the work that they've done, because from a technology standpoint, it's a huge advancement. And for us, our ability to manage both internally and project information externally, it's a light year ahead of where we were with the existing system. Thank you.
Chief, thank you. You touched on a couple of points there. I'm only going to pick up on one of the threads, which was that this can be a tool for training. And I want to direct this to Director Rhodes because I know that she's been intimately involved in this as well. So using it as a tool for training, taking all this data, how is the department going to then translate this data into roll calls for officers before they go out on the street? And, you know, to reinforce the notion that they have to be more refined in terms of the stops, and that, you know, a particular division may be overly aggressive and not adhering to the policies adopted by the commission.
Sure. So we are trying to sort of take one policy, one innovation at a time, and our first one was pretext stops. As this commission is aware, we had a new policy, we did a large amount of training, and then we started to inspect division by division, including traffic and CSPB, about their knowledge of what the pretext stop was, about how many they were conducting, and why they were conducting them. And we've been doing that for approximately the past year, so that each division comes in, we talk about both how many stops they're doing, why they're doing those stops, what sorts of data error rates we are getting, the understanding that you know, you have to record data accurately for us to be able to use it, and therefore, and then going back. They have then asked us, mostly I will say Captain Ramos and Commander Lurie, to go out to either bureau level, command staff briefings, or individual area briefings and roll calls to talk about the policy, to get it straight, to understand it. And I think, as you may remember, when we first proposed the pretext stop policy, it was different than a blanket or something else. We wanted to see if it in fact had good effects, the effects that we wanted, the fact that people would be stopped for public safety reasons or with articulable information for a pretext stop. And we have started to collect the data so that we can determine, is the policy working the way we, or the commission, envisioned it? And so it will be what we hope is a virtuous circle where we change policy, we look at data, and then we go back and maybe either change or tweak policy so that we don't say, this is it, it's written in stone, there is no changing. Instead, we will continually evaluate data with the commission's assistance to determine, have we trained enough? Is it an issue of training? Is it an issue of data entry? Or is the policy just not doing what we had envisioned it would do?
Thank you, Director Rhodes. There being no further questions, I want to thank,
I do have just
Commander
something else to add
Flores.
to that. Thank you.
Sure.
So once again, thank you, Captain Ramos, to the entire team, because this was a huge lift, and it really speaks to our commitment to diversity, equity, and inclusion, and being one of the two pillars in our mission, in our plan to commit to transparency and information accuracy. But I think to your point about talking about to the community and training opportunities, there's a huge opportunity here for our community members to have discussions and conversations with our command about racial equity and perception. And those things generally don't happen. And I think that when these discussions begin to happen, I think our officers will have a better understanding of the perception of the community, and the community, likewise with our officers, will have a better understanding about maybe perhaps why there is enforcement at certain times or due to requests from the communities, and why there's an increase. And I think you wouldn't be able to have that understanding and have the ability to see eye to eye without having those conversations, because the data just itself doesn't tell the whole picture. So I look at it as huge opportunity moving forward for us internally and then also for the community to have that information.
Commander Flores, thank you very much. And again, thank you for the team for putting this presentation together. This was phenomenal. Really appreciate it. I know that there's a lot of hard work ahead as we continue to refine this, but I'm certainly hopeful that the public will view this as a tool that they can use to their advantage to get a better understanding of what's going on in their own communities. Thank you, everyone. At this time, we're going to be in recess and go into closed session. Thank you.
The Board of Police Commissioners will now recess into closed session to discuss Agenda Item 5A in accordance with Government Code 54957.
We are back in session. Mr. T. Feng, can you please read out from the closed session?
Commission has concluded its work in closed session related to item 5A1, officer involved shooting number 019-22. Commission on a 4-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were tactics, administrative disapproval, 1 Sergeant 1, 2 police officer 2s, tactical debrief, 2 Sergeant 2s, 1 Sergeant 1, 1 police officer 3, drawing and exhibiting in policy, 1 police officer 3, 2 police officer 2s, lethal use of force in policy, 2 police officer 2s. Item 5A2, officer involved shooting 020-22. Commission on a 4-0 vote adopted the recommendations of the Chief of Police, which were tactics, tactical debrief, 2 police officer 2s, drawing and exhibiting in policy, 2 police officer 2s, lethal use of force out of policy, administrative disapproval, 1 police officer 2. That concludes the report out.
Thank you, Mr. T. Feng. We will not be in session next week, but we will return on April 25th. At this time, there being no further business before the Board of Police Commissioners, I move that we adjourn. Is there a second? Second. Motion's been made and seconded. All in favor say aye. Aye. Motion carries. Thank you, everyone.